Hey everyone, and welcome to the Irenic Ref podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Gross. The word Irenic here means aimed at or aiming towards peace. And my goal with this podcast is to try to create a bridge between coaches and officials by showing the humanity of each other in a more robust way, which isn't necessarily achievable in the minimal interactions a coach and official may experience during the game. And so with all that said, let's get to it. Today's guest is no stranger to the officiating world in South Dakota. He's been officiating for 45 years. He has been a state basketball official for 20 state tournaments, both boys and girls. He's been many region championship official, has done pretty much a South Dakota 16 games since they have started this in South Dakota. He was a boys basketball official of the year in 2006. In 2021, he received the South Dakota High School Activity Association Distinguished Service Award, has received the Don Hicks Memorial Award for volunteering for the YMCA, and was given his 25-year and 40-year pins for officiating in the state of South Dakota. And lastly, he was inducted into the Coleman Hall of Fame. He's a laid-back guy, but also competitive, and with that competitiveness, he has run a few half marathons, but along the way has realized very quickly that if you run near the back, that's where the fun's at. So please welcome to the show, Pete Entringer. Pete,
good afternoon.
Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you last. It probably hasn't been too long. It was probably at a baseball game this summer.
Yep. You were in Coleman a couple times. So
yeah,
got to see you there a couple times. So
yeah, and so it's fun every time I get to see you, just chatting about different things. And one thing I wanted to open up with here is you'd mentioned in the introduction that you'd send me some about the Entringer Classic. And I know that's something that's really dear to you, and especially to the community of Coleman, or I guess the high school of Coleman, the town of Coleman, and also just the DVC conference and the different partners that participate in that every year. And so just tell us a little bit more about this Entringer Classic.
Well, the Entringer Classic is in memory of my brother Mike, who passed away in September of 1990. We ref together for 13 years before he passed away. A couple years after that, a couple of us coming home from a basketball game thought maybe it'd be kind of neat to see if we could start a classic, to honor his memory. And so that's where the Entringer Scholarship Classic started. And the first year was in 1994. We had 6 teams, 3 games, 6 teams up in the Brookings High School, boys teams. And from there, it started to grow. A couple years later, we had a couple teams. And presently, we have 18 boys teams and 18 girls teams. I think in 98, we started the Girls Classic. And had good turnout for that, and then so we kept them both. And the Girls Classic is usually, right now it's 2 weeks before the Boys Classic, and in December. And the money raised from this, what we wanted was, we wanted to raise the money and give it to the area schools where Mike refed quite a bit at. And those are probably the Dakota Valley Conference schools, which around the Coleman area, Brookings area, that's where they're from. And so we thought if we raised some money, we'd give it back in scholarships. Well, the first year in 1994, I gave out 2 scholarships worth of $250 each, one to Rutland and one to Coleman. And since that time, we raised them up to $750 scholarships, and presently we give out $1,000 scholarships, and these go to area student athletes that participate in the Classic. Now, what do I want to say here? They some schools get more than that, depends on what amount of money that we get and the applicants that we get. Last year, we give out 56 $1,000 scholarships. So over the course of the year, that since it started, we have given out over $1 million in scholarships to area student athletes to further their education.
Wow. Yeah, that's just something that's incredible, starting from, and tell me more about the officials that work at this, the workers that work at this. Like, what's the compensation, or what's the pay that they?
It's all volunteer.
Okay.
Everything we do is volunteer. The Coleman School hosts Coleman Egan School hosts the Girls Classic, and Brookings hosts the Boys Classic. And so they open their doors to us and let us have it. And so then everything that we do, we have a hospitality room, which after the game, the teams that participate can go in there and get something to eat. Usually it's pork sandwiches that some grocery store, somebody donated the pork, somebody did roasted the pork for us, and we make up pork sandwiches for them, for the athletes to come in to eat. Coca-Cola donates all the pop for us, and so everything is volunteered. All the referees and everything, they volunteer their time to come and help at this to make it the success that it is.
Yeah, and being an official, it's fun to see that. Like, that's something on my calendar I always seem to mark in and try to help in any way I can. Sometimes it may not work out, but when it does, it's really fun. It's really rewarding, and it feels like the atmosphere is a little bit different at this classic than maybe some other ones. Like, it's competitive, but there's this sort of, in my opinion, like a feeling of like I don't know. I don't feel like the fans yell at the officials so much, and I don't know why that is, but it just feels a little bit more like friendly and at home.
Yeah, you're right there. I think now the kids look forward to playing in this, because there's probably a lot of schools that don't get invited to Classic nowadays. Mm-hmm. Your smaller schools, maybe they're probably not very good, and the kids never get to play in a Classic. Mm-hmm. Well, here they get to play in a Classic. We give them T-shirts. Everybody gets a T-shirt, and like I said, they get fed afterwards. They get treated, like they're the best players in South Dakota, which at that time they probably are. So, I think the fans are really appreciative of what we've done. As far as giving out money, whatever money we make, we give back out to the student athletes.
Yeah. One thing I'll do on here is in the description of this video, in the podcast, wherever they're mentioned, I'll put the website that you guys have for this. And I know there may be some people that end up watching this that didn't know this, that this classic takes place, what it was in memorial of, what dollars go towards, and what they are for. And so I'll put the description up. I'll put the website in the description just so people can go visit it, see more about it. And I know they can reach out to you, I think, or is it someone through that website, or?
Yeah, if they just get on the website, they can find out about anything they want to know on it, and they can look back on past scholarship recipients, and we have a Hall of Fame that we induct people into the Hall of Fame. They can see who's in the Hall of Fame, and upcoming games for this year, the dates, and who plays who, and so forth like that.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad we got to talk about that a little bit more in detail than just a 2-second pass by. Yeah. I feel it's worth more than just.
Well, to me, it means a lot. I mean, I know you come up and ref it, and we appreciate it a whole lot, but. To me and to my nephew Aaron, who was Mike's son, it means a lot to us than probably anybody else that works here, because it was in honor of my brother Mike and Aaron's dad. And so when we do it, we kind of put our hearts and souls into it. And, it's guys like you, though, that volunteer that come up to help and make it a success.
Sure. Yeah. And like I said, it's always fun. There's no reason why I wouldn't miss it for a good reason,
man.
So let's keep going now. Tell me more about yourself, Pete. You can go whichever direction you want to go here, but just tell us a little bit about yourself. You said you run marathons. Is that something you train for?
Yep. Well, I graduated in. Now you know how old I am. I graduated in 1972 from Coleman.
Okay.
Attended South Dakota State University. and then came back to the family farm where I've been farming for 50-some years now. So got a family, wife Julie, and 4 kids. Derek's the oldest. He farms now with me. And then Megan's second oldest. She's lives in Brookings, and she's married to Rob Klinkenfuss, who is associate head coach of the men's basketball team for the Jackrabbits.
Oh, wow.
Beth Ann, she lives in White, is married to Dylan Murphy, and they have 5 kids.
Yeah.
And how she does it, I don't know, but she does a very good job with it. And she used to teach at Arlington, Hendricks, and then South Dakota State. She taught at South Dakota State for a couple years. Right now, she's a stay-at-home mom. And then my youngest, Kyle, works for Warwick Workouts out of Sioux Falls here. And he enjoys that, and he does a really good job there.
Yeah, I think I went to school for a few years with him at
Yeah,
GSU.
probably did. Yep. He helped with the women's basketball team over there a couple years. So then, as far raising the family, I was always active in playing softball and baseball and stuff like that. And I've played some over 60 baseball a couple of times now. But then back, I suppose about 20, 25 years ago, I just started running. I don't know why. I liked running in high school. I was a track athlete, but I don't know. I just started running and kind of went from there. And then my daughter started running too, Megan. And then so we've probably run 10 half marathons together.
Wow.
And then this year we did a triathlon down at Yankton and Crofton, Nebraska. We did a triathlon down there. And that was a different experience. But it was a lot of fun. We're going to do it again. It was a lot of fun. And so I've been farming for 50 years and starting to turn it over to my son Derek now. So I can kind of kick back and go to the grandkids' stuff. And of course, don't want to miss that. I mean, that's where the fun's at. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's probably what I'll be doing.
Any other hobbies you have that are besides the marathon running and the officiating?
Not a lot of hobbies. I should probably be finding some right now. I mean, but watching my growing with my grandkids whenever I can, stuff like that. I don't really fish. I really don't hunt, but I keep busy all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet you on the farm that keeps you pretty busy with all the events that go on.
There's always something to do.
Absolutely. Even when you don't plan for it, probably something comes up that you got to attend to. So following that up, let's talk about officiating now. Let's switch over to that. How did you get started? How did you get involved in officiating? And maybe we'll just even combine kind of two sort of topics I had addressed. Like maybe who influenced you? Like maybe that's the starting and who got you into it.
Okay, I got started in probably 1976. I started doing junior high basketball in Coleman and Rutland, and my brother Mike and I did. We kind of went around. Then in 1978, I did my first football game with Roger Nelson. Roger is a longtime friend of the family's, and he was Mike's father-in-law. And he needed somebody to go with him one night. That's back when we was a 3-man crew in football, just 3 man. So it was Mike and I and Roger. And my first game was at Bridgewater, and started football in 1978, and then I did my first basketball game in 1978. That's when girls played in the fall.
Yep.
And Roger come one night and he said, "Hey, I don't have anybody to go with me." He stopped at the farm, said, "I don't have anybody to go with me. You got to go with me to West Central. We got West Central and Bridgewater. It'll be a blowout game." I said, "Okay, I will." So I went with him. My first game ever. Went with him. Wasn't a blowout game. It was a 1-point game in overtime. And so that's how I got started. Roger was a big influence, in getting started. And, of course, my brother Mike had been doing it a couple years before me. Yep. So then he kind of took me under his wing there, and we got started. And like I said, we had 13 really good years together. And then after that, after he passed away, then I got on a different I kind of didn't get out of football. I just wasn't on a crew for a couple years. I picked up games, whenever somebody needed somebody. But then I got on a crew with the Duffys, Gary and Terry Duffy, and Jerry Bickett was on it for a while, and so then we did a lot of games there, and then presently I'm on with the crew with Gary and Terry Duffy and Irvin Gebhardt, Todd Foster, and Adam Fritz. So that's our crew right now. So we have a good time. And so then I got started back then, and then back when my kids got old enough, then I was kind of fortunate because the girls played in the fall and the boys played in the winter, so it wasn't every night thing,
Yeah.
So I could pick up enough games, during the girls' season and then during the boys' season, so I really didn't miss a beat doing that.
Yeah. So tell me more about, you said he kind of swung over and told you to come along. What was because I know nowadays there's more of a strict structure of like, you got to register, you got to take these tests, you got to go to these meetings.
Right.
Was that something similar back then?
Right.
Like how did that work?
Yep. It was similar to that back then. You had to take your open book test and send your money in the state and get registered. It's about the same as it is now.
Okay.
And then after, I think after a couple years, you had to take your certified test to get certified. So.
Yeah. And then let's kind of talk about the girls and boys, that split season sort of thing. There might be a few other officials that end up coming on here that talk about it as well. But like when you remember when the split all of a sudden like wasn't there and all the games were in the winter, how did that change your officiating? How did that change just the layout of officiating in general?
It didn't change my officiating any. I was just gone instead of maybe 2 to 3 nights a week, when the seasons were split, to 4 to 5 nights a week.
Yep.
You were gone, just about every night. And of course, I was fortunate that my kids had grown up and were gone. Kyle was still at home. But then my Beth Ann, she used to play basketball till her junior year. Then she said she didn't want to play basketball. She wanted to play hockey. Well, then she went to Brookings to play hockey, so that didn't really interfere with my basketball schedule any. So, but I always marked it off when Kyle played or any one of my kids played. I'd mark that day off, and I wouldn't ref that night when they played. So, because I didn't want to miss that at all.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I know with my boys, I'm just like, man, when's it gonna hit that point where you're like, okay, when do I got to start toning it back? When do I got to start going to these events? When do you start saying, oh man, I can't miss this recital or I can't miss this game? And so it's one of those things. Even being as young as my boys are, I'm still thinking about that stuff and how it impacts the officiating in the future.
Well, I got grandkids now. The oldest is 10, and as soon as he gets old enough to a couple more years, when he's old enough to play junior high or get into high school, well, then my officiating career will probably be done because I'm not going to miss any of my grandkids' activities. It's just too much fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of makes you think about, there's times when I'm officiating where I'm trying to bring that new official along with me to try to get them some experience, and so making sure that we're, bringing these newer guys up, the younger guys, or even just like guys that maybe aren't necessarily young, but they're just newer to the game, and making sure that there's a solid foundation when guys like you and others are done. I
do that too. I really enjoy taking a younger guy with, because not saying that I know everything, but I've been around long enough. I think I got a few tips, just to help them out, to make them at ease. If a coach happens to start riding them a little bit or get on them, usually we'll go over to the coach and say, hey, coach, if you want to yell at somebody, yell at me.
Yeah.
Leave him alone for a while. And you know what? Most of the coaches are really, really good about it.
Yep.
I mean, they understand, because without the newer, younger officials, there are not going to be too many left in another 5-10 years.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if it was an NFHS sort of like survey or poll, but it seemed like vast majority of the officials that are currently active are over the age of 50 on average.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And so it's like, how do you kind of mitigate the loss of officials? And I think it starts with the coaches. It starts with administrators. It also starts with us as other officials, like bringing them along as well.
Yeah. But for the most part, I think the coaches are really good. You know, I mean, granted, you know, and coaches have a job. You know, their job is to teach the kids, and you know, they like to win.
Yep.
I mean, that's their job, and you got to, when you're an official, you got to expect, you know, if you miss a call or it doesn't go their way, you got to expect them to voice their opinion at you. And I know back when I was younger, it used to bother me, and I probably, you know, talk back to them or something. But nowadays, if you just listen to them, you know, that's what they want. If you just listen to them and, you know, give them an answer when it's appropriate, then everything's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think really early on in my career, I tried to like very pridefully tell them exactly what happened and not listen to them and just give them that answer and move on. And I think that kind of, you know, set a bad tone sometimes with me initially. And then, you know, now it's like, man, looking back at some of those times, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I just wish I would have listened a little bit more, asked what they saw, and then say, I guess we saw a different way, or something to that effect.
And you know what? There's probably been some games that I missed a call and I knew it. And so I'd go over by the coach and stand there and says, okay, let me have it. I missed it.
Yep.
You know, I said, as soon as you're done, then we're done. We're going to move on. And, you know, they appreciate, I don't know if they appreciate it that you missed the call, but, you know, they know that we're human and we're going to we're not going to get everything right, you know, all the time. We try to, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, and that's I think that's part of the human error, but also the fun experience of officiating.
Yeah.
And speaking of fun experiences, let's just jump into that. Do you have a fun story about officiating, whether that's with like a crew that you went with, whether that's with an interaction? Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Like, just a fun story of officiating, if it's like a drive, a certain game, something like that.
There's been so many fun things that have happened. I was with Johnny Barkham one time. We were up in Wilmont, I think, and we got locked in. After the game, we got locked in our room. Couldn't get out.
Well,
everybody had left. Couldn't get out. You know, so one of us had to climb up over the side of the wall or something to get somebody to come let us out. So it was just a lot, and there's a lot of good things. I usually, you know, what's fun for me now is usually when I get to a basketball game, sometimes the older people sit in the front two rows, you know, because they can't climb the stairs or for whatever reason. So usually I, you know, try and go and find a lady or some ladies over there that are sitting there, and I try to get on my side right away. I'll take the ball over before the game. I go, hey, you think this ball is going to work tonight? And, you know, usually I tell them, hey, you guys are really good-looking ladies here. Can you help me out tonight? You know, and it seems like if you get them one over to your side, you know, it makes the game just go so much smoother.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You got to have fun out there. I mean, you can't have that serious look all the time. You got to have fun out there.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's difficult for a newer official as well. You're just so focused on, like, I got the rules here, I gotta adjudicate, I've got the positions I gotta get in, I gotta answer to this coach. How do I get this expression that looks like I'm having fun when I really gotta focus and concentrate? And yeah, it just comes with time. And I mean, I think you know it well, not just with the experience that you've had, but just the times I officiated with you. It's just like everybody's there to have a good time. And, I mean, there's obviously people are there to win, but if we're having to call fouls the entire game, or if we're having to call violations the whole time, I don't really find that fun. And I think it's easier to talk to coaches, talk to players, and get those things scored out so we can have fun in these games. And it's about the kids in general. So,
yeah, you're right. It's about the kids, and you know, like I said, I've repped with you a couple times. Remember that one game we did, Sodak 16 game over in Madison.
Yep.
I think it was a girls' game, Flandreau and West Central, I think.
Yep.
Great game, one of the better games, you know, I've had. You know, and it was with you and Nick Hunnemer, I believe. You know, two younger guys. And you know what? It was a lot of fun. Probably one of the most funs I ever had at a game.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys were young, and you guys, you know, were really good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, let's go on to, and maybe that's the next question and answer. But do you have a memorable interaction with me or just another official? You talked about kind of your mentor Roger, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Roger Nelson.
Is and him bringing you along to that first game and going to overtime.
Yeah.
But is there another memorable interaction you have with another official or even me or maybe both? Either way.
Another one after I started wrestling with Reggie Olson then.
Okay.
He was from Nunda and a good official. And we went many years together before he passed away in 2014. But we were had an Elkton game one time. Elkton and DeSmit. Marv McCune was coaching at DeSmit. And very competitive game. I mean, place was full, going back and forth. And Marv thought that we were giving favor to one of the Elkton kids, and I ref with Marv. I ref a couple of state tournaments with Marv, so I knew him really well. And anyhow, Reggie ends up teeing him, and before Reggie got to the scorer's table to give the tee out, I ended up giving him another one, and at that time it was 3 tees and you were gone.
Yeah.
So then I get over to Marv. I says, Marv, that bus is not running. It's really cold in the bus, so you maybe want to just sit down, And Marv just looked at me and kind of shook his head and laughed, and he sat down, and it was good.
That's awesome. It's kind of fun to hear some of these stories, and a lot of times coaches remember those, and they're just as memorable in a good way. And maybe in the moment it wasn't so memorable and good, but after that they're like, oh yeah, I remember back in the day when you gave me that second tee and told me it was cold outside.
That's what's nice about. I mean, like I said, I've done it so many years now. I've had kids who've grown up and have kids and ref their kids. So it's a couple, 2, 3 generations of people that I have refed. In a basketball game or a football game, and it's always fun to see them. I was up in Minneapolis at Mall of America one day. This must have been 5, 6 years ago, and I seen this girl with the Entringer Classic shirt on.
Yeah.
So right away I go up to her. I says, "I like that shirt. Where did you get that shirt? I just love that shirt." And she started telling me all about it, and then she looked at me and goes, "Well, that's you. You're Pete." And I said, "Yeah, I am." So then, you can do stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's fun when you, just even running into players on out in public and seeing them and just kind of chatting with them. I just remember, I don't exactly know her name, but Vibrant Hurley player, really good player, center for the last few years. And up at the Salem 3 class shootout, ran into her, and I just said, so was my officiating better today than it was in that region game? And she's like, I don't even remember anything you called. And so, it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes in the moment, they remember things, and then other times, like you had that interaction where they just recognize you after a little moment. And it's
very
nice.
Seldom after the game. I mean, when you meet somebody, say a week later or something on the street, hardly ever have I ever had somebody come up and, get mad at me or talk bad to me because of that game or nothing. They're always very good about it.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just the state that we live in South Dakota here. I think it's maybe far from other states and what maybe might happen with interactions outside. But I don't know that for a fact, so I'm not going to claim that or claim stake in that claim at all.
But I think South Dakota, sportsmanship is a big thing.
Yeah.
And but I think nowadays I think it's good. I think South Dakota really has good. There's a few teams, a few fans and stuff. I mean, but that's every place you go.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think sportsmanship in South Dakota is really good.
Yeah. I agree, and I think it was a big emphasis from our state associations to the coaches, to the players, and I think that's gone over really well. And even in the past few years, I've seen, like, even the fans have mellowed out a little bit. And not to say that, obviously, in the big games and the heated games, they aren't, cheering for their team and rooting them on. But I've kind of seen this. I think people are realizing the decline in officials, the need for officials, and this. And I think it helps that our state association has prioritized this so highly.
Yeah,
well.
they're really, the state association is really good. The people out there, I mean, if you got a problem or anything, they back you 100%. You know, unless it was something uncommon. But they're really good out there, supporting you and having your back on whatever you do.
Yeah, and speaking of like associations, SDHSAA or NFHS, we've had different rule changes over the past even 10 years or 12 years, however many years I've been officiating now, maybe 10. There's been quite a few rule changes since I've been in it, and needless to say, there's probably been quite a few more since you've been in. What's a rule that you've liked, that you were glad was added to the book, or even just the state association adopting it?
I like the 3-point line.
Okay.
I thought that was good. When
was that addition?
Oh, I can't remember when that was added. That was in the late 90s or early 2000 or something. I don't know for sure on that. They used to have that backcourt violation where you had 5. If you didn't do something, and they took that out, which was a good thing because I didn't like that.
So that was it basically like a 5-second count in the backcourt? Is that what that was? Okay.
Yeah. So they took that away, and but for the most part, the game is the same. As far as basketball, you got to put the ball in the hoops to score.
Yep.
And a foul is a foul, whether it's in NBA, Division I college men, or high school. A foul is a foul.
Yep.
It just depends on how they call it. You know.
And then lastly, same vein, but like, what's a rule that you've seen implemented that you kind of are like, I don't really like that one, or maybe it's like, I didn't like that rule was taken away, or something to that effect of like, there's something that I don't necessarily like in the rules, and I wish this would be changed a little bit. If you can think of one.
No, I can't really think of one. I think, the continuing, shot, if you're making a move towards the basket and you get fouled, you count the basket. Well, you could be at the free throw line and pick up the ball and starting to turn for your shot, and somebody grabs you. Well, you're still in the act of shooting, so you're supposed to count the basket if it goes in, or give them 2 shots. Well, a lot of people don't really look at it that way or understand that rule.
So from more of that's more from a fan perspective or from a viewer of the game. They don't really comprehend that rule very well, and so it's a tough one to. It's not tough to officiate. It's just tough for them to understand.
Right. And then I think the 3-second count.
Yeah.
If you're moving across the lane, you got time to, even though you've probably been in there 3 seconds, but if you're getting out of there, you don't want a game interrupter. You don't want to stop and blow 3 seconds and interrupt the flow of the game. If you got a good flow going to the game, you just kind of let it go. So, but if they're standing in there, camping in there, then you use your voice and say time to get out. And if they don't, well, then you call 3 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that comes down to somewhat of the art of officiating in a sense. There's a science of here's the rules, black and white, and there's also this, hey, we want this game to be played in a way that's fun for everybody and not just bringing attention to us as officials and how do we do this best. And it's helping the players along, not coaching them, but helping them along to make sure they're legal, they're doing things right, whether that's getting to them between like a foul and saying, hey, that last time in the lane you were set up pretty long. I need you to be moving. I need you to get out of there. Different things like that. Yeah. Or we're not coaching them, but we're saying, hey, I saw you in there. I got to call it the next time. Like this is the rule. And
usually if you got trouble with a player, all you have to do is go to the coach, say, Coach, help me out here a little bit, will you? Or during the time, if there's a timeout or something, hey, help me out. 31 is camping in the lane there, and if you don't get him out, I'm going to have to call it. And most of the time they talk to him, and it's taken care of.
Yeah, and it's almost instantaneously taken care of too, and you typically don't see that for the most part for the rest of the game. And then kind of lastly here, the last question I have is, so you're a veteran official, you bring younger officials along. What is something that maybe you would say to a newer official, whether that's to keep them interested or just a good advice for this new official and saying like, hey, here's something I learned the hard way, or this is something you really should try to work on right now because it'll help you in the long run?
I think the first thing for younger officials is mechanics and have a good whistle. Even though your call may be wrong or right, but if you have good mechanics and a strong whistle, that'll sell a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And then don't let things bother you. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, you missed the call at that end, you knew it, and you got room for it going down there. Okay, forget about it. Because if you start thinking about that too much, then you're going to miss another one on the other end.
Yep.
So, but just the thing is, just go out there and enjoy it and have fun. Know what you're out there for. You're helping the kids. And if it wasn't for you, they probably wouldn't have a game.
Yep. No, that's true. Explain that mechanic thing a little bit. When you say in strong mechanics, is that like make yourself look tough, or what exactly are you meaning by strong mechanics?
you want to look sharp.
Okay.
You want to have your arm straight up, and do the mechanics. You're National Federation High School mechanics. You want to get them down. So if you do have a call, take your time. A lot of younger officials just hurry up and make the call and go and report it. Well, take your time. The game's not going to go without you.
Yeah.
So just take your time and go over there, report your foul, let everybody know what happened, and go from there.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks again, Pete. I appreciate you taking the time to come down to see me in Sioux Falls here. And yeah, I hope you guys had a great time this evening with us, and hope to see you again on the next episode of the Irenic Ref.